Welcome to my leadership development presentation. I am Travis Klopfenstein, and this is for MBA771 Leadership and Organizational Behavior. I will discuss my core values, leadership behaviors, and how I expect those to affect me in the future. I've listed 4 core values, beginning with leading by example, loving others, being honest and transparent, and inspiring. Leading by example. When I was a freshman at St. John's Military School, I saw a lot of the upperclassmen leading by fear and intimidation. It reminded me of the Machiavellian quote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Well, I disagreed. I thought that by setting an example, you could lead teenagers. And as a senior, that was the leadership model that I instituted for the entire cadet corps. However, when I went to the Air Force Academy, I decided not to follow my own example, and I was more interested in having fun, and it did not work out that well for me. I re-enlisted in the Air Force years later and was inspired by Senior Master Sergeant Tony Trisella, an older guy, but he set the example with his uniform, his military bearing, and his physical fitness. If he could do it, why couldn't we? The core value of loving others. My senior year in college, I was a resident assistant, and I focused on one key attribute, to really care for the guys, and it made a huge difference in their lives. As a program manager at Rockwell Collins, my wife and I hosted a picnic for the engineers and their families. We knew the next coming years were going to be very difficult with long hours, and we wanted them and their families to know the sacrifice and that we cared for them. The third value of honesty and transparency. Perhaps the best example is at home. I've witnessed in our family all of us taking turns at being honest and transparent, and just how powerful that can be. I also witnessed this in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. Our lives depended on rapid exchange of information. My final core value involves inspiring others. I can recall being inspired by my grandfather who came over from Italy, and he talked about the principles of our Constitution and our country, and really was able to connect to higher points. And it also applies as a father, wanting to set a good example and motivate and inspire my sons to really use their talents. Related to core values are key behaviors. These key behaviors I've identified 4 include taking risks, empowering others, communicating effectively, and motivating the employees. For example, as a program manager, I had to really trust the engineers with their recommendations and their decisions. And it's tied to the core value. If you really care for people and respect them, you will acknowledge their contributions. Next, empowering others. It kind of reminds me of the difference in a leader between a gardener and a chess master. A gardener is going to set the conditions for success, the soil, for example, and then prune and encourage development. Whereas a chess master believed that he had all the information and people were like pawns. So if you really love others and are motivated for them to do their best, you'll trust them and you'll empower them. The third behavior to focus on is effective communication. Bottom line, briefing both good and bad news, and that's related to the core value of honesty and transparency. I've always learned that leaders do not like surprises. So if you really care for your leader and you want to be honest and transparent, you will communicate information as quickly as possible. Finally, the fourth behavior, motivation. I remember several examples when I was with soldiers really explaining how their efforts were directly tied to the larger mission, inspiring them to do their job well. Well, it applies to engineers and others, connecting what they're doing with the larger vision and how the work they do can affect others. So those are tied to the core values of being transparent, sharing information, and really caring for them. My leadership model with my core values and behaviors, what will it do for me? The key to getting everyone to work together is communicating the vision. Why are we in this joint venture? The value that each company and each person brings to this. Really motivating the employees to strive for the common good. Understanding my leadership model and the behaviors, it will help in my current role. By doing well in that current job, I know that I will prove my abilities and establish trust with my leadership. And my hope in the future is in 1 to 2 years I'll transition into a role managing other program managers, and eventually, perhaps in 3 to 5 years, be responsible for the entire department as a director. That's going to require really setting a positive example, again, caring for others, being trusted by leadership and trusting, and communicating effectively both internally and with stakeholders. Beyond that, perhaps in 7 to 10 years, that behavior can result in a vice president role responsible for profit and loss for an entire business area. There will be responsible to take risks, to be transparent, to lead change, inspire, motivate others, to really care for people, and at the end have a good balance between your career and family. Thank you.